we want to jump back into the featured segments. We have a very special guest with us tonight. His name is Kasey Phillips. Welcome him as he comes onto the stage to share some of his knowledge with us. All right, Kasey, you are the founder / CEO of Precision Productions, which is a brand under the Precision Global Music Production Company. Why music? Why did you decide to get into music?
Originally, I would say it was because of my dad. Obviously, Mr. Kasey Phillips. I kind of was born into the studio and started looking on or learning music or engineering per se from a very young age.
Yeah.
And I would crawl into the studio and destroy things and mash up things in the studio and get run, and then come afterwards and try and learn how to fix it on my own. And that's how I started to, I guess, understand the inner workings of a studio.
Did you know that that was something you wanted to explore, or that was something that you just kind of dabbled in and realized you're good at?
I think it kind of just happened naturally. It wasn't like, I mean, I would do football and swimming and stuff like that, but it was just, music just happened naturally.
He's kind of shy here, but he's a super producer in his own writer. You want to name some of the hits that under your belt? That might gas you up a little bit. Or some of the artists that you've worked with as well.
I would say we could go from way back from Doggy Slaughter, Trample, Marshall, Mr. Fett, Fog, Vibes Care Done, Waiting on the Stage, Kerwin Bacanalis.
A lot of soca.
Yeah, I mean, we have a few dancehall and reggae in there. Kesanta Sanchin, Loving You, Marshall Vibes Cartel, Hold You Tonight.
What makes soca the prominent genre of music that you tend to lean more in the direction of producing?
I grew up in soca. Soca has fed me and housed me from young. So, I mean, that's what I live and breathe. But I also dabble in other stuff. But it always has this Caribbean backbeat, or shell, if you want to say,
yeah,
or influence.
Growing up in the industry, you were introduced to a lot of persons. Some would say you probably had easy access because you had links through your father, etc. And so somebody might say, well, Stevie born into that, man, he died why he get through, died why he out there, he's one of the tough people because of that.
That's debatable, eh? I mean, I went through my own struggles as well. I mean, when I was younger, I guess artists back in the day, they would come in and I was young, and my dad would be sleepy or something, and he'd be like, nah, I ain't running that session tonight, you handle that. And me, I glad, because I young, yeah, I get to run my session. And then they would come in and be like, all right, where your father? I'd be like, he's sleeping. I'd be like, all right, so who doing my work? Me. You sure? You know what you're doing? I'd be like, yeah, you're safe, man. But by the end of the night, for sure, they'll see, okay, he can handle it, and he know what he's doing. And then they probably wouldn't even ask for him again. And that was kind of the transition from me starting to get my own clients. And so I mean, yes, the links were there, but I still kind of had to prove myself and show that I know what I'm doing.
And so when we had previous conversations, I remember you mentioned that you have high standards set for yourself. So much so that you've traveled to be able to expose yourself to some of the things that are happening internationally. How has that influenced the way that you do your music now and the way that you do the business in relation to that music?
I would say on the high standards, I mean, I grew up, even though I grew up in soca, I grew up listening Timbaland and Missy Elliott and Brandy. So I would always compare my sound to that. So that's why the music is still soca, but it would always sound a little left. So I would always try to make sure that I could stand up or even compare to that. So it was always this never-ending battle of trying to sound better or sound as good. And that's on the music side. I guess you asked me on the business side
as well, because I think a lot of creators, especially musicians here, they want to know how do you establish the business side of your operation, especially as it relates to the songwriting, the producing.
Right. In searching for better, make sure that the legal side covered. Yes. And what are the new trends? What are the new linkages to be made, especially like digital distribution. I started that since 2013, when everybody else was like, boy, I afraid contracts, I'm not signing none of them things.
So just give everyone a small definition of what digital distribution means.
Digital distribution or digital distributor is a person or a company who you assign or you sign with to distribute your music on the digital platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, etc. And I guess if it's an exclusive deal, you could only have one. You can't give two people the same song to sell because that wouldn't make any sense. So that's what the digital distributor would do for you.
And then I know some people also have questions about the difference between distribution and publishing. So can you clarify that for some people?
Well, distribution is only the right to distribute to the stores.
Yes.
That's it. They get paid and they pay you your percentage or however your deal is set up. Publishing, in a nutshell, is... how do I answer that?
Well, we know that and we'll discuss this in a short bit with Jelani and Kit Israel.
I'm just trying to compare the different. Publishing, in a nutshell, relates to the aspect of the splits of the song, the creative input, the IP. I would class that in the publishing. I guess we will get into the definition of it later. Into the full details of that then.
But just to rewind a little bit as well, in relation to you establishing yourself as a brand, you said you started off as, Kenny Phillips' little son who doing the little sessions, but eventually you transitioned and you started a full brand, Precision Productions. What influenced that transition for you?
All the time I was Kasey Phillips, and I would just do it for kicks. Run home from school, do 3 beats or whatever, play the fool, run and play football, come back. It was never anything serious. I think I didn't even know how to charge people. I was like, just give me whatever now. Because it was really just for fun. And at a point when I realized, I think it was a point where I realized I was taking on too much work and not finishing anything. Because you're just people coming and recording, but then you could never deliver it to them. And I had to make a decision and be like, you know what, I need to really structure this properly to make sense.
Yes.
And also to the branding side, I think we started doing road mixes and hip-hop remixes, and it wasn't cool for me to keep putting Kasey Phillips remix, Kasey Phillips remix. So I kind of wanted to brand it under that kind of identify the sound, per se. So that was kind of where that happened. And then on the business side, and this way it gets funny, on the business side, I had to register the company in conjunction with branding the brand because it started to become... let me say, it's not started.
And the company he's referencing is the Precision Global Music Limited. Yeah.
I guess being a creative, we don't really have a salary. So going in the bank would laugh at me and be like, well, I can't give you a loan.
Which is a really struggle for an entrepreneur.
My account had $14 in it at that time, but still, like, I can't give you a loan because I'm not seeing money coming in your account because we would get paid and then go and do some nonsense or pay somebody or pay a writer or a background vocalist. So I guess it was 2 aspects happening at the same time. Branding and then also creating the company. So now I have to be disciplined enough to pass all these funds through the account so that the bank and the accountant and the taxman could see that I have income coming in and then I have expenses.
And that's an important note to touch on. We're actually going to elaborate more on that in the creative entrepreneurship panel, where you have a brand, but how do you now deal with the business side of that brand? Because that is also very important. I myself struggle with that, setting a salary for yourself and making sure that you pay that every month.
Right.
As a sole trader, as an artist especially, you don't really see yourself as a business. And so there's a struggle now in how do you balance the money that you have coming in and establishing yourself professionally enough that if you go to the bank,
I think that
you can
just
get a
touched
loan.
on it there. That was the whole thing. I had to change my view of seeing myself as a business.
Yes.
And that was where the whole branding of Precision came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so even with the branding, you also mentioned that you had to get a team. So in our conversations as well, you mentioned it's difficult sometimes to pull a team together because of, one, the standards you have for yourself, but also how do you determine the right persons that fit the job?
It was one of those things where it reached a point where I was like, I can't do it all as much as I want to because I have a problem delegating. Because my thing is, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I don't have a manager yet.
Yes.
If I could answer email faster than you shouldn't be managing me. So it was one of those things where I keep struggling with, I could do this for myself, but then again, I can't be doing all these things and then still have to make music and then figure out salaries and paying this. So it just became too much. And I had to get a team to handle at least the administrative task of invoices and writing up these little things. And then it developed into more eventually. But it was a task for me to be like, I need to delegate something.
Yeah, and that's something I think when you hold close to you hold your brand close to you, it's difficult to let go a little bit and let somebody, because that I struggle with that as well. If I could read an email and answer it quicker, why I have to hello, did you see that email? So picking the right team is very important, and this is a very rigorous screening process. And anybody I think
you have a process?
Yes, I have an interview and screening process. Mark could attest to that.
All right.
And it's something that eventually develops over time because I realized I need 10 me's to be functioning around me
So
to be able to get the things that I want to do done, the things that go through your mind that you want to do as a creative professional. You need to have a solid team around you to get that done. So for you, you went away. You live away right now, correct? Yes. What are some of the things you're doing away that is different to what you would be doing here?
At a point, it was the same routine, especially with soca and carnival. It was just the same routine, and I kind of wanted to change that and start to expand and broaden the reach, broaden the horizons. And some of the deals and some of the people we're trying to reach at, especially calling from the Caribbean, which, yeah, we could call them, but they'll keep giving you, yeah, we'll hit you back, we'll get back to you. But when you write there and you be like, hey, I ride down the street and I could come and have a meeting tomorrow, it's a whole different ball game. Like, for instance, the Samantha J on the rhythm and Krisha Turner and even the R City link, all these things happened because I was there. So we sent Samantha J, I don't even think it was her manager, it was her DJ or something. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, Saturday we're recording. If I was in Trinidad, that wouldn't happen.
Right.
So I had to be there and record her on Saturday.
And so that touches on the topic of maintaining competitive advantage as well. In our conversations, one thing that you said that stood out to me is you're able to distribute your music online so quickly.
Right.
Because you were able to be away and make that connection. So if you can just let the people know a little bit about how that part of things works out.
Originally, I think we laughed about that. Originally, I created my own email blast, email list. You know, everybody tried to send out music on emails. And we didn't know what we were doing. I could say that now. The email took 11 hours to send, one email, like 300 an hour because we had a limit, because you know Gmail will block you if you send too much. So it was something that we learned over time, but now it takes half an hour and we can send it out fast. But the whole point of what Patrice is saying is having the music out and also being readily available to stream and to sell and everything. I get burnt with that a lot before, where I would release a rhythm and it would take 2 weeks to go up. And by the time 1 week gone, I already seen it on Zippy Share and all over these blogs that don't get pirated already. So it's like,
from YouTube.
And to try and go and take that down after is a disaster. So I try to make sure that even if I have to wait an extra month or two to make sure that it's up on iTunes, Spotify, all these things, I'll wait. Because I rather send it out and tell people, go here and stream it, as opposed to send it out and nobody don't know where to get it. Because I'm not going to give everybody the download link, which is our next debate we have in our industry, because you want the music to go out, but you don't want everybody to download it. So it's this kind of weird
dynamic.
You have to kind of separate your email list, and that's a whole disaster by itself. But that's the concept of just having it ready as soon as it's dropped, so the public could get it from anywhere. I think what I learned the hard way too is I always thought iTunes was the big dog.
Right. And
then I started using these smart links and realized actually Google Play is where everybody was buying the music. And I didn't think so, because I'm an iPhone person, so I was kind of hating. But I had to get the analytics to really see that and understand way. But I kind of ignoring 60% of my market by only sending out an iTunes link.
Right.
So it's something I had to learn by force.
Yeah, and one of the things Precision Productions is known for is putting out the most anticipated rhythm of each carnival season. You always look out for a rhythm from Precision Productions. And in talking to Kasey, we realized that is something that he strategically does. It's part of his marketing campaign to maintain the brand. And that's something we actually want to touch on a little more in terms of the Antilles rhythm. Because something that you said that you learned while you were away is how to develop a pool of writers and creatives to work with to create songs.
Right.
So we can touch a little bit on that, and then we're going to transition to bring Jelani and Kit. It's Jelani Pops Shaw and Kit Israel of Advocate Productions to speak a little more on that as well.
Okay. So when we got a production contract offer in Los Angeles under Dre and Vidal, and I think the norm back then was an artist would write his song, bring it to you, sing it in the studio, you build the music behind it. That was the norm. And I think from going away and realizing that the whole operation was upside down. When I say upside down, they just did it from a different direction. It was eye-opening to me, because they would have writers come in for, let's say, 2 weeks straight, just do demos. Then they'll say, okay, this artist coming in to look for songs for her album, and they'll play 10, 15 songs for her, and she'll be like, I like this, let we go. And I was like, what do you mean, let me go? Pull it up, we're recording. You're not going to learn it? Nah. 2 lines at a time, down the road. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I saw it's almost like an assembly line, which is good and bad, but it was eye-opening to me. And with that now, they're mass-producing songs, but, I mean, yeah, that sounds bad, but the good side about it was the writing stayed with the professionals.
Right.
Not saying that artists can't write, but for me, an artist wouldn't always deliver. They could have 10 great songs, but then they might have 30 alright songs.
Right.
So I try to let the writers, I mean writers too wouldn't always deliver, but if you have a pool of writers, you know that again, this is your profession. Just like I wouldn't go to the master and engineer to mix my song, and vice versa. So you try to keep it, and that's what I learned out there as well. The producer wasn't even engineering.
Right.
He was just there. He built the beat and he going home.
Right.
The engineer recording the vocals. So everybody had their assigned task, and that's why I learned and saw that. I was like, oh wow, maybe I could try that. And the first attempt from that, and I think I sent out an email while I was there to guys like Urfron, FB, I can't remember who was writing back then, Mr. Vibe, a few writers, and was like, guys, let's try this. And I think the first one, it probably had some before Antilles, but Antilles was the first project that I saw the success of it. Urfron wrote his song for Patrice. The key didn't fit her, so he ended up doing it. It actually was for Patrice. FB wrote Vibes Got Done. And
that became the life of a project that was inspired by some of your experiences while you were away.
Yes, pretty much.
And so the rhythm phenomenon is what I call it. It's something that we definitely want to continue having a conversation about. And so we're going to invite onto the stage Mr. Kit Israel and Jelani Pop Shaw to have that conversation. But in the interim, while we set this up, we're going to throw it to our screens to get an idea of what we do as a company.
About 5 years ago, I can't believe so much time passed since. It's called the Uncovered series. I personally wanted to do this video to highlight step by step the process that is involved in creating a project like Uncovered and the different facets that we've explored over the years. There is so much work that goes into it months prior.